Good morning students. We'll continue with the formulation of suspensions. Okay, we have discussed in the formulation of suspensions what all are required. So starting drug and additives. In additives we have discussed about vehicle, wetting agents, deflocculating and dispersing agents. Right, remaining we have to discuss about your flocculating agents, suspending agents and your preservatives and organoleptic additives. Flocculating agent. So I have already told you a controlled degree of flocculation is always desirable. Okay, why? Because they will settle fastly and on uniform, on just a shaking or giving a gentle agitation they will again redisperse. So a control, in order to maintain controlled flocculation in a suspension, flocculating agents are important, right? And all these I have already told you whether to use all these ingredients, that it depends on what kind of drug you are using, what kind of method you are using. So the choice of ingredients or the choice of formulating agents, it depends on various conditions. So what are flocculating agents? Flocculating agents, nothing but they are neutral electrolytes that are capable of reducing the zeta potential of suspended charged particles to zero. You know, zeta potential, high zeta potential that can be reduced by electrolytes. So your flocculating agents are those which will reduce the zeta potential of the particles which are suspended to zero. The concentration of added electrolyte necessary to produce flocculated state corresponds to the quantification expressed in Schulz-Hardy rule. So this is one rule I wanted to mention. So we have seen about DLVO theory, right? Particle growth, interparticle forces, theory of sedimentation, theory of wetting. This rule also comes there, and this rule, it states nothing but as the valency of ion increases, the aggregating efficiency of that ion also increases. So that is nothing but a Schulz-Hardy rule. The aggregating efficiency increases with the valency of ions is nothing but a Schulz-Hardy rule. So whatever concentration of electrolyte you are adding in the suspension to produce the flocculated state, it is corresponding to the quantification expressed in Schulz-Hardy rule. Means the way the Schulz-Hardy rule, it states that as the valency of ion increases, you know, sodium valency is 1, calcium valency is 2, aluminum valency is 3. So as the valency increases, their aggregating efficiency also increases. Okay, as the valency increases, the aggregating efficiency also increases. This is with a Schulz-Hardy rule. So this is, to state this, you have an example. Monovalent ions such as a sodium chloride and potassium chloride in small concentrations of, let us say, 0.01%, in between 0.1% to 1% weight by volume. In such a small concentration, they are sufficient to induce flocculation of weakly charged water insoluble and organic non-electrolytes. So whenever you want to induce flocculation of weakly charged water insoluble and organic non-electrolytes, you can use monovalent ions such as sodium chloride and potassium chloride. And in case of insoluble highly charged and polyelectrolyte species, okay, and in case of insoluble highly charged and polyelectrolyte species, similar concentrations, that means same 0.01 to 1% weight by volume, similar concentrations of this water soluble divalent or trivalent ions. I have already told you, as the valency increases, the aggregating efficiency increases. So for weakly charged non-electrolytes, you will use monovalent, and for insoluble highly charged species, you will use divalent or trivalent ions such as your calcium, aluminum, sulfates and citrates. So they are required for flock formation. Okay, that is nothing but your aggregation. So they may be required for flock formation depending on the particle charge. So what is the particle charge, whether it is positive or negative, that also influences how much concentration you should take, right? Because if the positive charge, then they will repel, right? So you have to take more concentration. If it's negative charge, they will attract, so you have to take less concentration. So the concentration range is in between 0.01 to 1% weight by volume of your calcium, aluminum, sulfates and citrates required for flock formulation. So this is with your flocculating agents. We have discussed deflocculants and dispersing agents also. So now we'll discuss about suspending agents. What are very very important suspending agents? They may be asked alone. Write about the suspending agents used in the formulation of suspensions. What are suspending agents? The name itself indicates suspending agents are those which will act mainly by increasing the viscosity of external phase and thus reducing the rate of sedimentation. Suspending, in order to make them suspend, okay, suppose this is a bottle. In order to make them suspend the particles, you are adding the sediment suspending agent. So that is nothing but they, by increasing the viscosity of external phase, they will decrease the rate of sedimentation. Okay, so suspending agents are those which acts mainly by increasing the viscosity of external phase and thus reducing the rate of sedimentation of dispersed particles. Okay, and in addition to this, some suspending agents, they also form a protective coat around the individual particles. Like suppose this is an individual particle, so suspending agents will form a protective coat around the particle. So in that way they are termed as protective colloids. Okay, so in this way the suspending agents act as protective colloids, and some suspending agents such as acacia, tragacanth, they increase the viscosity of water by binding water molecules. Okay, so by binding water molecules together, they limit their fluidity and thus reduce the rate of sedimentation. Examples for this is acacia and tragacanth. Hydrocolloids such as acacia and tragacanth, they increase the viscosity. Okay, they increase the viscosity of water by binding the water molecules together and thus restricting their fluidity. Okay, so suspending agents, they will be selected on the basis of viscosity they produce. So again, we want to discuss in detail about a suspending agent. Suspending agents are those which retard the settling, right? Which retard the settling, so they decrease the rate of sedimentation, which retard the settling and agglomeration of particles. Okay, they also help in decreasing the clumping or agglomeration of particles by functioning as an energy barrier, which minimizes their interparticle attraction and ultimate aggregation. So nothing but, suppose these two are your particles. These are your particles. Your suspending agent will act as an energy barrier between those two particles. So when it is acting as an energy barrier, it will minimize the interaction between those two particles, right? So now if interaction is minimized, aggregation will also be minimized. So that is the way they work, right? They retard settling and agglomeration of particles by functioning as an energy barrier, which minimizes the interparticle attraction and the ultimate aggregation. Right. So the general choice of suspending agents include these suspending agents. They may be either protective colloids, viscosity enhancing agents, or surfactants. Okay, protective colloids I have already told you, right? So these suspending agents, they may be either protective colloids, viscosity enhancing agents, or surfactants. Protective colloids, nothing but what I have told you, they form a sheath around particles, right? So they help in the formation of a mechanical barrier or a sheath around particles and their ability to increase the zeta potential. Okay, so protective colloids are those which will form a mechanical barrier and sheath around the particles and increases the zeta potential, right? Because flocculating agents are those that are reducing the zeta potential to 0. So in that way flocculation will happen. Here they are increasing the zeta potential, so flocculation will not happen. Yes, it is very clear. If you go through it, you can easily understand it. Then, okay, so we will discuss about this now. Protective colloids. In protective colloids, you have your cellulose polymers. So modified cellulose polymers such as your MC is nothing but a methyl cellulose, methocell. SCMC is nothing but a sodium carboxymethyl cellulose. HPMC is nothing but your hydroxypropyl methyl cellulose. Okay, so these modified, so in this protective colloids, first we are going to discuss about modified cellulose polymers. So suspensions, what I wanted to discuss is, so this I have already told you, right? Modified cellulose polymers, sodium carboxymethyl cellulose, methocell and HPMC, they are widely used in oral, topical and parenteral dosage forms. Okay, and the sodium carboxymethyl cellulose, it is an anionic polymer. Sodium carboxymethyl cellulose is an anionic polymer with a methyl cellulose and HPMC. Here MC and HPMC are non-ionic. Here MCO and HPMC are non-ionic, whereas your SCMC is an anionic polymer. Okay, sodium carboxymethyl cellulose is used in the concentrations up to 0.5% weight by volume in injectable preparations. In injectable preparations, it is used in the concentrations of up to 0.5% weight by volume. Yes, sodium carboxymethyl cellulose. And in oral dosage forms, they are used in higher concentrations because of the high solid content of their subsystems. Okay, but however, SCMC has some disadvantages. It is incompatible with the quaternary ammonium compounds. You know, quaternary ammonium compounds, they are preservatives. Okay, some quaternary ammonium compounds. So it is incompatible with number of electrolytes and quaternary ammonium compounds. Okay, next one more polymer is here, synthetic polymer. So example for synthetic polymer is polyacrylic acid, that is nothing but carbapol. Polyacrylic acid or carbapol. It is widely used in external lotion and gel preparations. Here carbapol is widely used in lotion and gel preparations, and then it is sensitive to electrolytes. Okay, and these polymeric agents, they function primarily as protective colloids, and they also alter the viscosity of the medium. Okay, so this is the protective colloids, polymers. Next, coming to clays. Clays, example for clays includes here hydrated aluminium and hydrated magnesium silicate. Hydrated aluminium silicate and hydrated magnesium silicate. Example for clays includes here hydrated aluminium silicate and hydrated magnesium silicate. Okay, these are your clays. Okay, they hydrate in water to high degree to form colloidal dispersion. They hydrate, that means they swell in water to form a colloidal dispersion which has a high viscosity. They hydrate in water to high degree to form a colloidal dispersion having high viscosity. Okay, and then the clay should always be added to water with high shear. That means the clay should always be added with high pressure to affect the uniform dispersion and maximum hydration. So in order to affect a uniform dispersion and maximum hydration, they should be added with high shear. Okay, the pH of the aqueous clay dispersions is somewhat alkaline in the range of 8.5 to 9.5. So pH of this aqueous clay dispersions is alkaline in between 8.5 to 9.5. Therefore, they possess some acid neutralizing capacity. Okay, clays can be formulated in systems in which the pH is between 6 and 11, but they are more stable in between pH 9 to 11. Although they are more stable in between pH 9 to 11, they can be used in systems in which the pH ranges from 6 to 11. Okay. And clay, you know, clay suspensions and gels, they are used with water. Because they are hydrating water, they swell in water. So they will be susceptible. They will be susceptible or excellent medium for mold and bacterial growth. So they should be adequately preserved with your antimicrobial preservatives. So whenever you are using clay, you should always add an antimicrobial preservative, right? And okay, so this is with your suspending agent. So this I have referred from Lachman and your Atmaram Power. Okay, so next coming to your preservatives and organoleptic additives. What are preservatives? Preservatives are nothing but what? In order to maintain the stability of the preparations. You know, nowadays every packaged medicine or every packaged food, they have preservatives. Preservatives, they are mainly employed for their fungistatic action. Fungistatic is nothing but what? Which kills or which prevents the growth, not kills, okay, which prevents the growth. Static means which arrests. Fungicidal means which kills. So which prevents the growth of fungi. So preservatives are almost very essential in almost every kind of dosage forms we see. Okay, what are the examples of preservatives? And the preservatives which are employed in suspensions, they are mostly same as that which are employed for a monophasic liquid. So which we have already studied in first year pharmaceutics. Monophasic liquids like solutions, syrups. Okay. So examples include preservatives. Example, benzoic acid, sodium benzoate, alcohol, chloroform, glycerine, and methyl and propyl paraben. They are always used in combination, and that too their combination ratio is 9:1 ratio of methyl paraben to propyl paraben. Okay, examples are very important. Benzoic acid, sodium benzoate, alcohol, chloroform, glycerine, and methyl and propyl paraben. And one more thing, You have to use preservatives by you have to also see the nature of drug. For example, if kaolin is present in your formulation, you cannot use benzalkonium chloride as a preservative because benzalkonium chloride will be absorbed by kaolin. So you have to choose a preservative depending on the drug, also depending on the choice what drug you have chosen. Benzalkonium chloride will be absorbed by kaolin. Next, organoleptic additives. So I have told in organoleptic additives we will have coloring agents, flavoring agents and sweetening agents. So these three are selected in association on the basis of age of the patient and the route of administration. On the basis of age of the patient and also the route of administration. Age of the patient and the route of administration. So a coloring the coloring agents include your FD&C dyes, food, drugs and cosmetics dyes, or DNC dyes, that is drug and cosmetic dyes. Examples include other examples include apart from these dyes, Amaranth solution BPC which gives red color. Amaranth solution BPC which gives red color. Compound tartrazine solution which gives yellow color. Okay, if you want I can write the spelling here. Compound tartrazine solution BPC which gives yellow color. Then you have caramel which gives, that is nothing but burnt sugar, right? Caramel which will give you yellow to brown color. Then you have riboflavin, natural colors such as riboflavin, saffron and indigo. Okay, these are the coloring agents. Next, flavoring agents. So flavoring agents such as volatile oils, cinnamon oil, lemon oil, peppermint oil, they are used in the form of aromatic waters. Volatile oils such as cinnamon oil, lemon oil and peppermint oil, they are used in the form of aromatic waters, mixed fruit juice or chocolate flavors in sweetened base. They can be used as a flavoring agents. Okay, and next, sweetening agents. In sweetening agents you can use sucrose syrup, invert syrup, sorbitol or artificial sweeteners such as sodium saccharin. Sucrose syrup, invert syrup, sorbitol and sodium saccharin is an artificial sweetening agent. So these are the organoleptic additives, preservatives, suspending agents and flocculating agents. Please refer the video and make the notes from the video and the textbook, and in case of any doubts let me know. So with this we have covered the formulation, and in the next class we will start with the evaluation of suspensions. That will complete the suspension part. Okay, that is also very important question, formulation and also evaluation. Okay, please go through the video and thank you.